All right, everyone. So we have a pretty cool update here from the New York Post. New trove of Amelia Earhart docs reveal frantic search after legendary aviator vanished during historic 1937 flight. A trove of declassified documents Friday by the Trump administration sheds new light on the frantic search for Amelia Earhart after she mysteriously vanished on her infamous final flight across the Pacific nearly 90 years ago. The 4,624-page tranche of includes desperate Coast Guard messages sent to Earhart, 39, in the immediate days after the pioneering aviator and her flight navigator, Fred Noonan, disappeared on July 2nd, 1937, during her historic but ill-fated attempt to become the first woman to fly around the world. So you see a picture here. Looks like that's from Purdue University. A Coast Guard dispatcher urgently broadcast to Earhart on July 4th, 1937, saying they were using every possible means to establish contact and providing detailed instructions to reach them if she heard the signal. No signals were detected on Earhart's plane frequencies. Feeling fear, she had crashed her legendary Lockheed 10E Electra into the shark infested waters off Howland Island, midway between Hawaii and Australia, as the massive air and sea search raged on, the documents showed. In one heartbreaking message, a dispatcher described personnel constantly communicating with Earhart before she vanished and expressing their admiration. So this is pretty crazy, right? I mean, not that this is at all shocking, but it's them constantly trying to say, listen, we're trying to make contact here, right? Find a way to make contact with us through this, do this, and clearly she just was not able to. Talked Amelia so long now, like searching for a close friend, though most have never seen her some heard her voice. The choppy July 5th, 1937 message said, those who did not have great admiration, those who did have great admiration for her courage when she called in slow measured words, half hour field left no landfall, stop, not until last message did voice show emotion, stop, unverified here, Noonan with Amelia. The next day, hope soared when reports spotted flares near Howland Island, which later turned out to be meteors, the document showed. Pretty crazy. The remaining documents includes photos, flight logs, detailed U.S. Navy reports on the intensive search for Earhart, flight prep records, news coverage, weather and plane conditions at the time, along with subsequent inquiries and theories about her disappearance. Director of National Intelligence Tulsi Gabbard said on X Friday night. These records include reports, maps, and other documents tracing Earhart's final journey, her last known communications and location, and the initial search following her disappearance. As agencies identify additional files, the new documents will be uploaded to U.S. National Archives on a rolling basis alongside those previously released. So these are documents detailing radio schedule, frequencies, and notes pertaining to Amelia Earhart's plane. Okay. Earhart and Noonan set off from Lae, Papua New Guinea, aiming to refuel on Howland Island en route to Honolulu and their destination to Oakland, California. But strong headwinds in life forced her radio transmissions to go silent. The U.S. Navy and Coast Guard conducted a 16-day search for the missing duo without success, and Earhart was officially declared dead on January 5th, 1939. Despite many attempts and millions of dollars spent over nearly 9 decades, neither Earhart's remains nor the wreckage of her plane have ever been located, with the latest $1 million expedition by Tony Romero and his deep sea vision team coming to naught last year. This is another document from a U.S. Coast Guard official dispatch regarding contact with Earhart's plane. Romero, a South Carolina based deep sea explorer, captured a sonar image of an aircraft shaped object that he believed was Earhart's plane in the Pacific Ocean, which was later confirmed to be a rock formation. Can you imagine that? You're going on this big expedition, you said, oh wow, I think that's actually Amelia Earhart's plane, and then you get there and it's just a rock formation. That has to piss you off. On November 4th, a 15-person crew made up of researchers from Purdue and the Archaeological Legacy Institute set off for a remote island in the South Pacific to investigate whether a strange metallic object called the Torreya object is Earhart's missing aircraft. The 3-week expedition will zero in on the mysterious discovery first spotted in 2015 satellite images on the north shore of Nuku Mararuru Lagoon. Researchers said the enigmatic find, believed to be the main body and tail of the missing aircraft, is located underwater in a lagoon on the island, located between Hawaii and Fiji, near the center of the Pacific Ocean. The search team is due back on November 21st. Friday's documents purge comes almost 2 months after President Trump pledged to declassify and make public government records related to Earhart and her final flight. So that's the article from the New York Post. So looks like there's an expedition that's going to be going out and maybe potentially can give us an update. And we'll obviously be following this story. But this is one of the crazier mysteries, I think, um, you know, of certainly in American history, where you would think, especially at this point, right? Because obviously in 1937, you're going to be a little bit less able to find out, especially if it crashed in the ocean and all of that. You're going to be a lot less able to find some of this stuff. But in 2025, there are a ton more resources, right? There is a ton more technology that could potentially find this. And to this point, there's nothing. So it's going to be interesting to see if this, I guess, we should go down and look again at what this is, but this expedition right here, um and it's going to be due back on the 21st. Maybe they're going to have something to tell people about, and it's always one thing that I've realized is that with these documents being declassified, you always get some new information, some very interesting stuff. It's cool to see the documents, and I'm not against, them coming out, but it always feels like, bottom line is, when these documents are released, you're kind of left with the same questions. You're kind of still sitting there going, well, we like there's nothing in any of these that are like that's actually what happened. We're still at the same mystery that we were before. Once again, it's not an argument saying that these shouldn't have come out, because now we get all of these interesting, little documents that we saw, we get the transmission, we learn little things, but the overall questions still remain. There's no document in these files that's like they knew what happened, they just didn't tell anybody or something like that, right? None of that is here. And it is just one of those really weird things. I haven't necessarily studied all of the theories. I know there's some theories of them actually landing on the island and what happened from there. There's some theories about them obviously just crashing into the ocean as another one. But because of the strong headwinds, I have no clue, right? I have no clue, and I don't think many people truly know what ended up happening. I guess the most likely out of all the evidence we can see is that it just, the winds took the plane down, crashed into the water, and just no technology has been able to spot it to this point, right? That's seems to be the most likely, because you'd figure there'd be something else if it was anything else. Obviously, you'd figure we'd have seen the debris by now. There'd be something you would figure that you'd see, or it just feels like the only way that we wouldn't know is if this thing was just hidden deep in the ocean, right? That's like kind of the only way, I guess. But who knows? At the end of the day, who knows? But to think about 1937, this happening, and to think about how high profile this entire thing was, right? This entire event was, and that we still don't know. We know just about as much as they did in 1937, right? We know just about as much as they did 2 years after, when they finally declared her dead, right? We know about as much as they did then, still to this day. So I'm hoping maybe this next expedition can, you know, maybe this next expedition will be it. Or at least give, the thing is that there just seems to be no, like, there just seems to be not even a clue of what what could have happened here, right? There just seems to be, okay, it crashed, and that's about it. Like, that's the only way we know. There's not some piece of evidence of, well, we know for sure that it went into this area, into the water, or that they made it onto land and crashed on land, and what happened from there. There's just, you're kind of looking in a large area, it appears. Um, and like I said, in 2015, I mean, part of it is too, I will say, is that it's also, it feels like there's so much that goes into doing these dives and these discoveries. Like, figure this was in 2015, right, where there was satellite imaging on this area that they're now going to look at. So that's 10 years to get to the point where you're about to go in. Actually, 11 years, right? We're in 2026 now. So this is 11 years that it took to start even going on this. And then of course you have stuff like this where it's, I mean, think about this, right? You go out there, a deep sea explorer goes out there from sonar imaging and thought it was the plane in the Pacific Ocean. and it's just a rock formation. So it's like you don't even know where to begin, right? You have all of these different things. So this is what we know right now about Amelia Earhart. We're going to be following this because my guess is that maybe we'll do some on this too because maybe I'm wondering, and we haven't clicked on these yet, so maybe we'll do it in the next video if that ends up being the case that these are actually good. But look at these two articles. I wonder, is there a chance that either of these are, talking about something that could end up being a failed expedition, right? Because these are making it seem like, hey, we got some good stuff here. So we'll see, right? I would love just to know what at the end of the day actually happened. If you find it in a certain area, you can at least whittle down. This is probably what happened, right? We're like 90% certain, but right now there's the most likely option feels like it's just in the water somewhere, but we really don't know, right? There's the only reason we believe that is because they were obviously flying over it, but they could have crashed in a million different places. So thank you all for watching, and we'll see you next time.